Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zack Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait.
It's Jets-Giants week. The NFL's two New York City teams meeting for just the 15th time in the regular season. Is it a rivalry? We will talk about that and a lot more. Tim McMaster here, along with our Jets reporter at The Athletic, Zack Rosenblatt. Thanks for checking us out on the Can't Wait podcast. Wherever you're listening, if you're watching live or checking out the audio version, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, all that stuff helps us out. And for the second straight episode, we have a special guest. Charlotte Carroll is joining us. She is one of our Giants reporters at The Athletic, so she's going to help us get ready for this game. And Charlotte, first of all, thanks for joining us. And I just learned that you and Zack are actually neighbors, which is
Yes, it's exciting. We've run into each other at the farmer's market. It's a lot of fun. I get to see your dog, Zack, is always
you have yet. There's this coffee shop I go to almost every day now. I drop Samantha, my girlfriend, off at the train at the Path in the morning. Then I park over at the park and I go to Mod Cup, which is my favorite coffee place in this area. And
wait, you're there every morning too?
Yeah, I've been going. I go pretty early. I don't know how early you're up, but
probably not early.
I go at like 7:30, I would say. But yeah, so when I every now and then I'll post on Instagram that we're there, and then Charlotte's like, the first time Charlotte saw this, she's like, "Wait, do you live over here?" And then I ran into her at the farmer's market. Yeah, we love Jersey City Heights. Where are you from originally? Because you're not from Jersey, right?
No, I'm from Chicago.
Chicago. Wow. So, how do you like the Jersey life?
I really like it. I mean, Chicago is always going to be home for me, but Jersey's a good spot. I've moved around quite a bit, so this is only my second year in Jersey. I was in Brooklyn for a little bit. I was up in Connecticut, so
love Brooklyn.
Getting the full tour of the East Coast.
That's tough to do the covering the Giants from Brooklyn. That's no fun.
Doesn't Duggan live in New York, right? He lives
in Riverdale, right? I think. Yeah. I don't want to give away addresses, but he is on this side. He's on this side of the river with me, so he does have to make that trek.
Yeah, but yeah, Jersey City we love.
Yes, big fan. And
all right,
glad I ended up here.
Let's get into this because I know, Charlotte, you don't have a ton of time, so we want to maximize that and preview this game. Then we'll get into other stuff, just Jets related after that as part of the podcast. And of course, at the end, we'll do our picks pool as usual. We have a singular leader, Zack, in the pool right now, so that's exciting. If he
not
hangs
me or
on
you.
in that stature, it's not me. Maybe we'll have him on next week, him or her, because I couldn't tell by the name. But and we lost Zack. So, all right, Charlotte.
It's my show now. Take it over.
Let's get into this because these teams don't play a ton.
Sorry about that.
Zack back in if you're listening on the audio. All right. These teams don't play a ton, but obviously they meet every year in the preseason. The quote from Jonathan Franklin Myers yesterday was, "I don't give an F about no big brother, little brother. I just want to win." I think that may be true for the players for the most part. But when it comes to the fans, there is some bragging rights here. I mean, they don't play that often. Who cares about the preseason game? So there is something special, I think, about this game as far as the fans go.
Yeah. I see it on Twitter because fans, even within my comments on that quote, there were because I still have some Giants followers from when I covered them. They were fighting in the comments about, Giants fans the Giants needing this game more than the Jets do, and the Jets being like, we don't care about the Giants, they're irrelevant, and Giants fans obviously get offended when you say that kind of stuff to them. I think it's gonna be fun. I'm excited to see what the vibe is like on Sunday. I haven't covered one of these before. It being a Giants home game and the Jets being on a different sideline is going to be kind of trippy for me. I'm curious what you think about it, Charlotte. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the crowd looks like. That's what I'm most curious about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is more about the fans than it is the players.
Yeah, totally.
We were talking a little bit before this that, whoever wins will have some bragging rights, and maybe that's when the trash talk will emerge a little bit more. I do think there's going to be some trash talk on the field between these two teams, especially given what happened in the preseason.
Yeah.
But that's not something they're going to outwardly tell us. It's going to be happening in game. We'll hear about it in the locker room after. But this is definitely more for the players, and both teams, I think, can use the win.
It is unfortunate that we won't get another Jihad Ward, Aaron Rodgers interaction, because that was the highlight of Hard Knocks and the reaction after that and everything those guys said about each other. And
I think we're gonna get so much trash talk though around that. I feel like
for sure. And there's the Jalen Hyatt, Sauce Gardner thing that was also surfacing. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. You have some connection. Leonard Williams obviously knows a lot of people on the Jets. Daboll actually was a Jets coach back in the day. He was a quarterbacks coach here for Mangini. So there's a lot of ties. I think Saleh and Daboll both like each other. I don't think they know each other particularly well, but I don't know. And on top of all of that, I think it's a pretty important game for different reasons for both teams. The Giants kind of need this to turn their season around to a degree, because if they lose this game, they're pretty deep in a hole that it's going to be hard to come out of, especially with all their struggles. And the Jets, they have all this goodwill, and I've been saying this all week, it'll evaporate if they lose to the Giants this week. Like any goodwill they built from beating the Eagles, coming out of the bye, you lose to a team that on paper they absolutely should beat. They're the favorite. I think on paper they're a more talented team. There's we'll get into the matchup stuff. Like the Giants do match up well in some areas, but if the Jets lose this, all of a sudden this stretch that's supposed to be very easy. Like if you don't beat the teams that are worse than you, then it's not that easy of a stretch in reality. So it's I think because it's kind of important for both teams, it will bring a little extra juice, I think.
Definitely, yeah. No, I think
both
Giants
teams obviously having quarterback situations this year in different ways. Obviously on this pod, we talk about Aaron Rodgers all the time, even though he's not an active part of this team right now. But then you look at what's going on with the Giants. They give all the money to Daniel Jones in the offseason. And then suddenly right now, the fans, I think, would rather see Tyrod Taylor out there after what he did last week against the Redskins. Charlotte, what is the feeling within the coaching staff and the organization about the current state of this quarterback, and who is going to play Sunday?
Yeah, that's a really good question that has become kind of a weekly thing lately around the Giants, is who's going to play quarterback. I think they're going to take it as long as they can into the week, or up into Sunday, I should say. But it's at this point, it would be Tyrod Taylor. Daniel Jones has not been cleared for contact. He's out at practice like he was last week. It's a very similar situation where he's throwing the ball, he's out there, but he can't take contact. So it's kind of like, all right, it's Tyrod's show again. But when Daniel Jones is healthy, he is the starting quarterback. That is something that was said by Brian Daboll yesterday. Regardless of Tyrod's performance against Commanders, against the Bills, this is Daniel Jones's show still. When he comes back, if that's this week or the following, we'll see.
I saw Daboll was getting a little annoyed by the line of questioning about that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Daboll is probably annoyed, and everyone's annoyed of the questions about his health and just like, this is a quarterback you signed over the offseason for millions of dollars. It feels pretty many millions of dollars, many more millions than I think I'll probably ever have. But so it's kind of like, all right, this is our guy. We brought him back for this. While Tyrod's very capable, very good veteran, but he still was like assigned as their backup. So I don't think there's any kind of controversy at the moment.
Yeah,
that's more fan manufactured.
Taylor's exactly what the Jets needed as a backup.
I was thinking that for sure. I was thinking that watching him the last couple of weeks, like he just like makes smart decisions for the most part, and he's pretty mobile. Like he's like a better version of what they're getting from Zach Wilson, essentially. But I will say it does seem like the Jets defense is preparing for Tyrod Taylor, just like based on their comments. Like I asked, I think JFM about what stands out about their offense. He's like, well, we don't know who's gonna play quarterback, but then he started like doing his Tyrod scouting report. So I think they're kind of like prepared for Tyrod. I think for me, the bigger question than quarterback, because I think, Daniel has his issues, but he's very mobile, which Jets have had issues. I think the bigger thing is if Andrew Thomas plays, which you probably agree with, Charlotte, right?
Yeah, I think that's important. The line has been through so many shifts. I think it's on its sixth iteration in the last 7 games, which is not a recipe for success. It's a recipe for confusion. They're just bringing guys straight off the couch, like Justin Pugh. So there's a lot of chaos there, and it's kind of settled down the last few weeks. But Andrew Thomas and actually John Michael Schmitz are both back out in the practice field for the first time. So that's your starting left tackle, your starting rookie center. They were practicing yesterday in a limited capacity, kind of see how they're doing, ramp that up. Andrew wasn't doing as much as John Michael, so I have a little less faith that he'll be out this week, but you never know. And I think they're being really careful given that the setback that he had last week.
Yeah.
Or a couple weeks ago, I should say, when he tried to get out too quickly.
Let's get into some. That kind of brings us right into matchups.
Yeah.
And one of the key matchups, I think, is that Giants offensive line against this Jets defensive line. We'll talk about like matchups that favor each club, but the Giants O-line, I think it's 40% pressure rate against on passing attempts, which is not good. And this Jets defensive line obviously is one of the real strengths of this entire team. So if they get a little healthier, Charlotte, is there a way for this Giants offensive line to kind of hold the Jets at bay? And I guess one way you do that, though, right, is to run the ball, which is a Giants strength.
Yeah, no, I think you saw the offense, and that's been a little aspect of this whole like Tyrod versus Daniel thing. There's a lot of nuance to it because you've got Saquon Barkley back. There's a little bit more stability at the line, and Tyrod's also a more mobile quarterback, and he's not afraid to kind of like get out of the pocket as quickly. I mean, Daniel is as well, but there's a little bit more to him. So I think it's just kind of key to that matchup of, you know, what can they get out of the pocket quick enough? Can they make the throw? And then using Saquon as well as he gets a little bit healthier as he recovers from his high ankle sprain.
So a guy that the Jets kept talking about, because Connor was the main one asking these questions, but there was like trying to like bait the Jets defensive lineman to be like they're excited about going against this offensive line that's been bad, and instead of doing that, they like were very complimentary, and they all were focused on Evan Neal. He was the name they kept bringing up. So I'm curious, like he obviously had the quotes he had to Daryl Slater, friend of mine. He those quotes that blew up about, you know, flipping burgers and the fans and all that stuff. Like, how has he responded to that? I feel like we haven't heard his name at least like, you know, I don't follow the Giants like day to day like you do. Like, it seems like he hasn't been as exposed as maybe he was to start the season. Like, has he been playing better?
Well, part of the problem is he's actually been injured. So
he's injured. That's right. Yeah, he was out last week.
Yeah, he didn't play last week,
Wow.
And he practiced it in a limited capacity yesterday. So that's another kind of one of those. Is he gonna play this week? I mean, I think they want him out there. He's obviously, you know, they're starting right tackle. They drafted him, high caliber draft pick. As soon as he made those comments, he apologized the next day to media, kind of just to get ahead of it, and he apologized to the night of on social media. So I think he's doing his best to kind of move past that. Obviously, I think the fans, I don't know if they're ever going to move past that in the way that you'd hope. It's going to be if his play can match that, unfortunately. And just timing is he's had to deal with this ankle injury. So we'll see if he's out there this week or if they kind of keep him out another week, but we'll go from there.
Yeah, I would say just based on all that, like this game is largely going to come down to, I think, whether the Jets D-line can feast on that O-line or not. Like if the Jets because as I was just on Talking Giants, which is a popular Giants podcast, obviously, I was telling them that like the Jets don't blitz like the Giants do. They rely on their guys up front to like get home. And if they're not getting home, which there has been games where they haven't, like Bryce Huff, I feel like should feast in this game, especially if Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal are either banged up or not playing. Like if the Jets D-line is not pressuring Tyrod or Daniel Jones, then it's gonna be an issue. But if they are pressuring them, that's why I think the Jets should win this game, because their defense is better than the Giants' defense ultimately. And so if it's a like grind it out, you know, slug it, you know, low scoring game, I think the Jets in theory should have the advantage.
Either way, I think both defenses could win this one for the other. So I think we're going to get a close game. It's not going to be a high scoring contest.
We can talk about the flip side now, Tim, if you want, because there's
I was going to say, well, and the Giants coming off a 14-7 win, I'm sure would love that same type of game here in this one. But the Giants get to the quarterback too, or they did a lot last week. They do it differently, right? And the Jets have a quarterback in Zach Wilson who, you know, handles pressure. Actually, in some ways, when you look at the numbers, handles pressure better than not pressure, but I think that's somewhat deceiving. So how do the Giants try to get to Zach?
I think it's an all-out blitz attack again, like we see from Wink on a consistent basis. I'm sure that's what the Jets will be expecting, but Wink does it in a way that's, I don't know, unexpected. You know, he's sending different guys. Dexter Lawrence has to play like the monster he played last week, had a season-high 8 pressures. You saw a good game from Leo. Kayvon also playing better as well. And then Bobby Okereke has also been a monster the last 2 weeks, kind of this new free agent piece who's just been really gelling lately with the defense. So I think that's critical up front. and that the secondary plays strongly as well. I think there's another injury component in the Giants secondary with Adoree Jackson, who missed last week with an injury. So I'll be curious if he's back this week. I think he practiced in a limited capacity as well. But Tay Banks, rookie first-round pick corner, has been doing really well lately as well. So we'll kind of see. But it's all up front in this matchup.
Yeah, I am worried about how Zach Wilson is going to handle especially like with how much they blitz. Like if they get to him early, it could be a long day for him. So that's gonna be fascinating. I know you got to get going. I should say you and I did a joint article that came out this morning.
Yes.
Where we kind of like went through all the different categories about the Giants and Jets. But they did leave out, I think, which was both of our favorite section, which we compared the two Trader Joe's, and we included our favorite Trader Joe's snack. I was actually snacking on mine just now.
Okay, I didn't even see what was it. Everything
but the bagel nut duo.
You've tweeted.
That's so healthy.
I've tweeted about it. Not when you have as much of them as I do.
I've got mine's in my closet. It's I love the kettle corn.
And I've also gotten attached to the there's these like honey pretzels that they have that my girlfriend introduced me to, and also the Scandinavian swimmers are my favorite sweet thing from there. It's like their version of Swedish fish. They are fantastic. But anyway, so we have that story out.
Is there a Trader Joe's in Jersey City? I guess so.
No, in Hoboken. Yeah.
Hoboken.
Make the pilgrimage to Hoboken.
Yeah, you got to drive.
Every week.
Yeah, I go every week too. But yeah, before we let you go, just we had predictions in there. Just like what's your prediction for how this game goes on Sunday?
Yeah, I think I went with 14-13 Giants, just because I think if this season has kind of any hope of carrying on in a way that they'd like, and they don't end up with a top 5 draft pick, they need this win. And it's not going to be high scoring, and I'll probably look really wrong when it's suddenly like 35-30 or something. But
the Jets ain't scoring 35.
Unless the defenses score.
Yeah, the defense.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But the Giants, after breaking a 220-minute score offensive touchdown drive, I can't see that from the Giants either. What about you?
Yeah, I think I said like 20-10. I just think the Jets defense, if they don't come to play, the first quarter has been the biggest issue for the Jets. If they come out and they're slow in the first quarter, then I'm going to be concerned again. But if they can come out and really, wreak some havoc on defense, and Zach Wilson isn't making mistakes, like I think they could run the ball down their throat with Breece Hall and win this game. If they lose this game, we're going to be back to apocalypse mode. So we'll see.
You or me both. One of us.
Yeah, one of us will be in maybe they tie, and then we don't know what to think.
And then they're both in apocalypse mode.
Yeah.
That's a right. A tie in the NFL is a loss.
You guys dealt with a tie last year. I've never covered a tie before.
Yeah, I didn't really have to deal with that either before. It was a very weird experience, and I don't really want to do that again.
yeah. And that means overtime, and it's a longer day. Like we don't want any of that.
Yeah, we're nice and early with the 1 p.m. game. I
haven't had many 1 p.m. games this year. You guys either. It's been crazy. Last year was all 1 p.m.ers.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful experience getting to get home at a reasonable hour and wake up on Monday, not traveling, not like so tired. It was great. It's been a good week for that reason.
Definitely. All right, well, you got to get to practice, so we'll let you get going. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Check out all Charlotte's great stuff on The Athletic, and enjoy the game on Sunday, Charlotte.
You guys too. Bye.
All right, thanks to Charlotte Carroll for joining us for a little insight from the other locker room as we get ready for Jets and Giants. The Trader Joe's thing, they cut it out of the article. I started reading the article. I got through halfway.
I think they're going to put it on the blog for the trade deadline because they liked it. But yeah, it got pretty long because I was a little more long-winded than I should be. Are you a Trader Joe's guy? I forget if we talked about this.
Well, we used to live on 95th, and there's one on 94th.
Oh yeah, it's in New York. So you need one near you. Yeah.
It's a little further now, so we don't really like the Whole Foods is before the Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
So we usually just go to Whole Foods.
They are opening a Whole Foods in Jersey City in November, which is exciting because the only grocery stores are like ShopRite and Stop and Shop and stuff like that right now. So
the Wegmans just opened in Manhattan.
I saw that. People are excited.
A bit of a trip. It's down in like Aspen.
Yeah,
but
I grew up by a Wegmans in South Jersey, and I loved it. They have great stuff. It was huge, and like their section of like the sandwiches and like stuff you could eat like there, like they have great like eat there stuff. Yeah, chocolate covered peanut butter cups. The other Michael Dunn said. By the way, Michael Dunn, we had a big Michael Dunn discussion the other day, and we saw you weren't in the chat. We were very disappointed by that.
Yeah, Now he's on. Unfortunately, Michael Dunn, the other Michael Dunn's on IR.
I know,
but he is expected to be back this season, coming off a great game.
So are they the same Michael Dunn? We don't know. Like maybe the other Michael, Michael Dunn was busy from playing. He wasn't in our chat. Like maybe they're the same after all. Who knows?
My first Wegmans experience, I went to Syracuse, and that's like they started in Rochester, so that was like the early goings. But though, just massive store.
Another good grocery store. I don't even know if there are any around here or not. Sprouts. We have a Sprouts in South
I've never
Jersey.
heard of that.
Yeah, so big grocery store talk. Who knew we would get into the grocery stores? But
we waited until mid-show though, so
it's a relatable topic. Everybody has to go to the grocery store, so you can't get mad at us about this.
True. All right, other Jets news and notes. Let's get into that. Most of this I feel like is going to be kind of health related, playing time related. Let's start with the most important health related stuff, which is the secondary.
Yes.
Sauce, DJ, Eccles seems like all on pace to return to action on Sunday. Full participants on Wednesday.
Yeah, concussion protocols. So they still haven't technically. Everybody's been freaking about the protocol thing. They're just steps you have to take, and they needed to be on the practice field to clear one of the hurdles. The fact that they were full participants, I think, puts them in line to play on Sunday, unless for whatever reason, they wake up one day feeling symptoms or whatever. But I can't imagine those guys wouldn't play. And getting Eccles back is big. And now you're all of a sudden loaded at defensive back because everybody loves Bryce Hall again after 3 weeks ago they hated his guts. And then when I suggested maybe they should look and see what they can get value-wise for him in trades, everybody was coming for my head. So, but they're good at defensive back. You got Craig James, who everybody loves now. They have Tay Hayes, who they found off the street on the practice squad. They have guys they can rely on. So they're loaded at corner. They're getting healthy. Like, they have some guys that are banged up right now. Randall Cobb was out of practice yesterday, which I think fans probably aren't upset about. But Michael Clemens was a full participant. He missed the last game. Dwayne Brown's not coming off IR yet. I imagine he probably can soon. It seems like they're, take your time, Dwayne, kind of thing, and seeing how things go. Which, again, fans are probably happy about because, they grow to hate some guys on this team. But they're getting healthy, and that's for this stretch. Like, this bye week came at a good time. And we go to this latter half of the season, and you hope guys that are trying to get their sea legs, like Dalvin Cook or whatever else you'll get into, like that they've gone through their preseason stretch, and now everybody's full speed ahead. The Jets have changed up like their scheduling on Wednesdays in particular. I forget what the logic was for it. It's annoying for me because it makes my day longer selfishly, but so now they're doing like lift in the morning, which they weren't doing before. And then they practice, and then they do meetings after practice. So we were there all day yesterday. And Salah's thought process is like getting it so everybody has like full energy to the end of the season, because I think they felt like they were running low on they were running on fumes by the end of last year. And I don't know if this is going to help ultimately, but they're trying everything to make it so their post-bye week woes go away, because it's been a problem. Last year they fell apart after the bye, as you remember. So getting healthy in the secondary is huge. Giants don't have like any receivers that scare me, but they do have some speed with like Jalen Hyde and stuff. So having Sauce and DJ and Michael Carter II and Bryce Hall and Brandon Eccles and the safeties, everybody healthy is huge.
Welcome to Callum Patton. Says he's first live stream.
Wow, welcome.
Thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. You mentioned Randall Cobb, and that injury brings up some thoughts. One, like obviously we've talked plenty about Xavier Gipson playing more, taking more of Randall Cobb's snaps. That becomes obvious if Cobb's not playing, that Gipson would play more. But what about the other guys? Like, does this mean something for Jason Brownlee or Irv Charles?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I would think Brownlee would be active on game day. Irv Charles already is, because he's low-key become like their best gunner now that Justin Hardy's out for a little while, which something we haven't really talked about. That is a big loss because he was a Pro Bowl guy, but he's on IR, and Irv Charles has made plays in back-to-back weeks on coverage. So, but yeah, I know they've always been fond of Irv, and he's got good size. I don't know, skill-wise, I don't know if him or Brownlee necessarily can play the slot. So what, if one of those guys emerged, what it would allow you to do is put them on the outside and let Garrett Wilson kind of move around the formation a little bit. You have these guys on the roster. They could have signed other receivers, and they chose instead to go with these guys. So at some point you need to see what they have, because, as we've talked about, the receiver room all of a sudden really, really lacking for depth and guys who have proven anything. All you have is Alan Lazard and Garrett Wilson that you can trust, because I don't think Randall Cobb has anything left at this point, as we've talked about anyway, even if he plays. So, see what you have in Gipson, especially because, as we've talked about, as much as they're saying like, it's because he emerged, like he still hasn't been a part of this offense really. Right. Like they've played him, but he hasn't really been a part of it. I don't know how much he's even like done as a slot receiver. So they if this coaching staff really believes in Xavier, then start giving him the ball, start manufacturing touches for him, see what you have there. And if not, the trade deadline's on Tuesday. There's receivers out there that are available. I think they should go and get one. I don't have a good answer for who that should be. I think there are some, Terrace Marshall's intriguing. He hasn't really done much in the NFL. I've said Darnell Mooney. I don't know if the Bears are trying to trade him. Hunter Renfrow has been a popular one. I guess if Randall Cobb is out and, Gibson hasn't shown enough, then maybe Renfrow. I think he's gotten the hype's gotten a little out of steam from Jets fans. He hasn't really done much these last 2 years, and I'm sure some of that is play calling, and he has been productive in the past. Like I said, if you can just trade Carl Lawson for him, then I'm sure do it. But yeah, I saw somebody say this on Twitter. I forget who, maybe it was Buffalo Jets fan. He's a very active Twitter guy. But like on third down, when you need to go and get a first down, like who are they going to? Because the defense is gonna try and clog Garrett Wilson. You can put two guys on him. You get this number 2 corner on Allen Lazard, and then who else is there to like make a play?
I feel like Conklin is like the only guy.
Conklin is like the guy that they've gone to a lot, and he's had a good year. But like receiver wise, there's not like they don't really have anyone that's proven and capable of like making the plays when you need them, kind of thing. And if Garrett Wilson goes down, who is making those plays? And that's the worst case scenario, obviously. So I am concerned about the receiver room. They have started to feed Garrett the ball more, which we were calling for, obviously, and the fans were like, just feed him the ball. I think he had over 10 targets this last game. Keep doing that, and you'll go a long way. But yeah, this receiver room, as we talked about, when it had McCall Hardman and Corey Davis, and before we knew who Xavier Gibson was, we were talking about the depth, and Randall Cobb was going to be the 6th receiver or whatever. And now he's played every snap, or what? Not every snap, but it feels like it, and has done nothing with them. So yeah, I don't know. This offense is not very explosive. So again, this week should be the week where they're really seeing what they have in Xavier Gibson, and you shouldn't base everything on 1 week. But if they play him a lot and he doesn't show anything, or he makes mistakes or whatever, like they should bring a veteran in of some sort, whether it's a free agent or in a trade. Like it's not that hard to find receivers in the NFL, I don't think.
You have to at least cover yourself for another injury. Like
exactly.
You have to have at least that much depth, which means they got to add somebody from somewhere. We'll see how that plays out. Speaking of the trade deadline, CJ Uzomah, because we've talked about Conklin and what he can do, and obviously Uzomah's become kind of like number 3 in that mix. Is there any world where they send him away?
Yeah, I've been asked that specifically by a couple athletic reporters, because everybody's working on their trade deadline stories. So I've had people ask, like, is CJ Uzomah somebody they would trade? I'm like 50-50 on it. I don't think they're actively looking to move him, because they play a lot of 2 tight ends, a lot of 12 personnel, largely. Like if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback, maybe it would be a little different. So they kind of need a third tight end that they could trust. But his salary is a little higher for a guy who's just a blocking tight end. I think ultimately you can look at that signing as not a great one. They were trying to go all in on the tight end position last year and find the right guy, and they found Conklin and Ruckert, who I think are both pretty good players. I think if a team called and offered them something that was interesting, I don't know, 4th round pick, whatever it is, I think they wouldn't hang up the phone. But I don't know that they're actively shopping CJ. And he is like a leader on this team, like you saw him making that Hackett speech before the Broncos game. I don't think the Jets are looking to sell off parts necessarily.
Big theater guy, obviously.
Yeah, big theater guy. He's Aaron Rodgers' Broadway buddy. So I don't. If I'm predicting, I don't think CJ is one of the guys that gets traded. It wouldn't shock me, because I do think they want to get Ruckert on the field more, and he should play more. But yeah, like I said, they're playing 2 tight ends a lot. Sometimes they play 3 tight ends. Kenny Yeboah is still on IR, and do they trust him enough for something like that? I don't know. So I don't envision it happening. But if there's a tight end desperate team, one of the guys that reached out is Daniel Popper, who covers the Chargers. He said they're kind of desperate for a blocking tight end. Like if they're really desperate, then if you can milk something out of that, whether it's a player or a pick, like absolutely try and either get somebody that contribute now or get some more assets for next year, because they don't have all their picks next year. So that's what it would take. It would take like a 4th or a 5th, whatever it is. I don't know. And I don't know what value a guy who doesn't really do much as a pass catcher really brings, but some teams need blocking tight ends. So yeah, Lou Giordano said in the chat, Uzomah strikes more as an offseason departure. I think, yeah, he's probably destined to get cut this offseason for cap savings, I would say.
Running back. Robert Saleh was asked this week about Izzy Abanikanda, and basically why isn't he playing? What's going on? Where is he all in the path of as a young guy getting up to NFL level. And I think he said what we kind of expected, right? Which is he's not quite there on protection, which is always the case with rookie running backs. And they're not really happy with where he is with special teams either. So he's not like going to get action there, which all makes sense, except Dalvin Cook has still shown nothing.
Yeah. Saleh kind of went with the line that he thought he looked as good as he has against the Eagles. And, in my head, like I do.
As good as he has is an interesting way.
But also, like, if you look at he had like 4 yards. Like, I don't know. I get the idea. Like the big thing that Robert said about Dalvin was he felt like, again, they say it after the fact. They were not saying it before the fact. They thought he could be full steam ahead when they signed him. And now after the fact, they're like, well, that was his preseason, those first 6 games. So I think there is something to that. I also think he's not the same player he was. And even if he's got his legs under him, if he can be better than he's been, and you can have like, a reliable veteran backup who can, be good in pass protection, then sure, I'm okay with it. They did pay him to be more than that. I think ultimately Breece being more ready than I think anybody expected has kind of saved them a bit, because I think the plan was to lean on Dalvin quite a bit. And instead they've leaned on Breece, and we get to the bye and Breece is already getting a full workload of 20 carries a game and all that stuff. So Breece has kind of changed the formula, which is a great thing. And I think that's why you've seen Diana Rossini, I think, was the first to report that the Jets were willing to trade Dalvin Cook. I don't know how much interest there would be. Maybe there's a running back desperate team somewhere, but ultimately I think that was a bad signing. Just because at the time, I thought it made sense money wise, maybe gave him a little too much. Ultimately, it's not going to kill them, but yeah, I don't know. There's not much more we can say about Dalvin. Yeah, as Michael Dunn said, he seems to have a burst that takes from the line of scrimmage and no further. It's very odd. And it really does seem like, I don't know, the way he runs, it doesn't look like he's even considering the possibility he might break free. Like, it just seems like he's putting his head down and like, I'm just going to get 5 yards here. There's some value in that for a short yardage back, but there's just no explosion. And that's kind of like goes back to why it doesn't make sense to me why they're not playing Izzy. And I've heard people say, like, maybe you don't bench Dalvin for Izzy, but Michael Carter maybe makes more sense to bench for Izzy, because Michael Carter, I think he's been their third down back. He's had some brutal drops, and he hasn't really brought much as a runner. We've talked about this a lot, but he just hasn't shown what he did as a rookie. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he's hurt or it's a confidence thing. I don't know, but I think I get the special teams thing and I get the protection thing, but I'll keep saying this. I've been interviewed a few times this week. Like, they have not made plays on offense. They're not scoring. So get guys that can score anytime they touch the ball, like Izzy. Like, if Breece isn't in the game, then have somebody else in there that's a threat. When you put Dalvin Cook in the game, the other team knows he's probably going to get the ball because he doesn't really contribute much as a pass catcher either. And the defense isn't really scared of Dalvin Cook when he's running the ball right now. So Izzy Abanikanda, maybe it'll be, either a home run or a strikeout, but I think you take that. And so I think Izzy should be playing at least, work him into the offense, get him a few snaps a game. It doesn't have to be a lot. I think he should be on the active roster, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be yet. They're making him earn it, and I get that. But the Jets seem to do this every year with young guys. They always wait too long, and then the guy comes out and he has a big play, and it's like, why did we wait this long? You wish they would get ahead of it instead of behind it for once. Same thing with Xavier Gibson. Like, they're finally deciding to go to him. You saw it last year. There was some games where Garrett Wilson was not getting the ball early in the season. It took them a little bit to feature Breece Hall, like different offensive coordinator, but like, get your best playmakers the ball in space and see what they can do, because this offense has been one of the least explosive in the league, and they're bad in the red zone. And I don't know. I don't get the reticence to. I mean, I get their reasoning, but I say, so what? Like, put them out there and see what happens.
If they traded Cook, it'd be fascinating that they would sign Hardman and Cook going into the season, and then trade like two of their key free agent signings, right?
And also trading away skill position guys for like an offense that's scoring like 17 points a game or whatever. Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk picks? Did you make picks for this week?
I'll do them as we're talking.
Do it on the fly. All right. Let's take a look at the standings. First of all, here is a look at where we're at. Jimbo Brennan alone in front with 52 total points out of 90 picks. So 57.78, the percentage on that. Nice job by him. And it's tight behind him, though. 5 people tied with 51 total points. If we take a look at just last week, if I can get to it here.
Some weird matchups this week.
Dan B 8 last week for the sole winner of week 7.
Wow.
Yep. All right, so let's get into the picks for this week. Mine are up here, which I don't feel great about them, but this is what we're doing. So as we go, Zach, do you just want to zip through and give your picks as we fly here?
Why don't you give like your ones that you're passionate about, and then I'll circle back since I'm just since I'm a great guy doing them right now.
I don't know if I'm passionate about anything.
I know there's a lot of that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of like weird games this week.
Yeah, like the first one there, right? Like I just feel like the Bills. It's been weird. It's been a bit of a struggle, and they're due to just break out and get back to where they were, right? Because they lost game 1 to the Jets, and then for a couple of weeks they look like a Super Bowl team, and then it's been since then. So I feel like they're going to get back to that. I don't think the Bucs are really that good. It's on the road, so I think the Bills get healthy and win handily. 9.5 is a big spread, obviously. And then going back through, I have the Jets. You said. What did you say? 20 to 10?
20 to 10 is what I had.
I was actually thinking like 21-13. So right in that same boat, but the 2.5 point spread. So I think the Jets win that one. I don't think it's pretty. I think it's ugly. I think maybe the defense gets a touchdown and it's enough to get them through. The other one I'll go with as far as talking points, I think Carolina gets off the schneid.
I did that too.
Yeah, I think that, and
everybody's all hot on the Texans. A lot of times whenever all the hype train going is when like the weirdest games happen. Yeah.
Because the way I look at it is the way the Texans, I think at their core, are not a good football team. They've played well. They've been surprising. They've gotten to 3-3, but I think it's a window for Carolina, who's got to win one somewhere. And I think at home they win. If they don't win, they at least hang tight, and the 3.5 I think is enough for me to go with them. So those are my 3.
Yeah. So the ones that jumped out.
There's no real great game, right?
No, like there really isn't. Especially with there's some injury. Like some of these teams, these games would be better if not for injuries. Like the Bengals 49ers one. It is the Sam Darnold return. It sounds like because Brock Purdy has a concussion.
I took the Bengals.
I took the Bengals too. So it seems like we're pretty similar. But so my gut says that because it's a former Jet, getting his time to shine, that he's going to like go off and Jets fans will lose their mind. But I did pick the Bengals.
I think Jets fans would be happy to see.
Yeah, they do. I think Jets fans do kind of.
Let us know in the chat right now. Like, what do people think?
Feel,
like, you want to see Sam Darnold have a nice game, right?
Yeah, and it's like such a perfect situation for him in San Francisco, and you'll really see what Shanahan's made of. But it does seem like the Bengals are finally getting into a groove after they looked terrible to start the season. Joe Burrow being healthy, I will say I have my eye on. I know I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast. And they've been talking about how like whoever's been getting the most hype one week, like where it's the Dolphins one week saying everybody they're the greatest show on turf, or the Bills, or or the 49ers. Like every week you think, okay, this is the clear Super Bowl contender. The next week that team loses to like some team that they should not lose to. And so I have my eye on that Cardinals Ravens. You picked the Cardinals, so you kind of were thinking the same thing. Or you did it with the spread, obviously, but like the Cardinals the Ravens were dominant last week. I forget who they played. They played somebody good. And so I have my eye on that game. Steelers Jaguars game. Those are two teams that like, they like have been like very up and down. The Steelers do seem like they're starting to figure it out a little bit. So I picked the Steelers in that one. I picked the Jets, obviously. You picked the Patriots. You're picking a lot of upsets, huh?
It's a big spread. I don't think the Patriots win.
Fair.
They lose. I think they lose that game.
And the Dolphins are banged up, and I think Tyreek Hill might not even play. Actually,
the Patriots showed some like spirit last week. You know what I mean? Like, I thought they were just going to roll over, but they get a win over a very good team to get their second win of the year. Belichick's 300. So I think they get back to where they were early in the year, where they were losing games, but they were all close because the defense is pretty good. And I think they do that with the Dolphins.
And I want to bring up the Saints because I think I kind of, to a degree, I started this discussion a week ago where it became clear that Derek Carr maybe isn't a good quarterback anymore. And last week I tweeted about how I admit that I was wrong for at one point in my life saying the Jets should absolutely sign Derek Carr. And then I took it a step further a couple of days ago. So I have some friends in New Orleans and I'm in a group with them. And one of them texted the group that because I made a joke about how I was covering the Giants and Jets game or something, and he's like, at this point, I'd rather Zach Wilson than Derek Carr. And I tweeted that, or I'm like, it's not like the most insane thing, which is crazy to think about, because Derek Carr's getting a lot of money. It seems like, yelling at his teammates on the sideline. He hasn't looked good at all. And I don't know. I think the idea that if he had a good defense and a good offensive line, that he would be like, at the very least, like a top 15 quarterback. And they have a pretty good offensive line and a pretty good defense, and it has not been the case. So I don't know. I was wrong about that. A lot of fans were, so I'm not like alone. Like a lot of fans responded to that weirdly, being like, it wasn't like you're an idiot. They're like, yeah, we all were wrong.
Yeah, I was the same thing. I thought Rodgers was too risky for two reasons. One, what if he just doesn't sign with you? Right.
Yeah.
Which was possible when Carr signed early. And then two, he's old, and that played out. I think at halftime of Monday Night Football week 1, we were probably even more heavily on they should have signed Derek Carr bandwagon. So
yeah. But here we are.
We should play a game next week based on, I think we got to give Zach one more game against a not great defense, especially a team that's going to blitz him a lot. But we could play a game next week on the pod where we compare Zach to the other 31 starters.
Just like run through it. I like that. Yeah.
He currently is, because I think going into the year, he was a solid 32.
Yeah. I like that exercise, because there's the Ringer fantasy football show. A lot of times they do a thing where they're talking about a certain guy, and they're like, all right, would you rather have, and they compare him to like various guys to see where he like stacks up on the rankings. And you're like, so would you rather him or him? And I think,
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Cause there are a lot of bad quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So.
And that's the thing is, I don't know if Zach has risen up the charts as much as like a bunch of people have fallen behind him maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, he was people probably would have put him 32nd if you had said going into the season he was the starter. So
yeah, I would have.
Even like Jimmy
G, because
he
was last year. He was 32 last year.
Even like Jimmy G has not looked very good either. So
and he's hurt.
Yeah. So there you go.
He's always hurt. All right. Anything else?
Nope. I think that's all.
All right. It's going to be a fun one. I think 1 o'clock game, Jets, Giants, a real chance for the Jets to get to 4-3. And at that point, you feel like, okay, the season is on track, I guess. And the possibility there in the distance of an Aaron Rodgers return. So, but a loss and it goes the other way. Either way, we'll be back early next week to recap the game, and we'll get into what we just talked about, where Zach Wilson kind of stacks up right now amongst the other quarterbacks in the NFL. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, whether you're doing it live or listening to us later on the Can't Wait podcast.